Imagine going on a dream vacation with your wife and young son. Then one small mistake leaves you stranded on a remote island where nobody even knows whether you're alive or dead. And when help finally arrives, it isn't there to save you. Instead, it comes to destroy everything you've built. Kevin travels to another country with his wife and little boy, hoping to enjoy a relaxing getaway together. He works as a doctor at a public hospital, and this long trip is his chance to step away from the constant pressure of his everyday life. This beautiful country is famous around the world for its countless small, breathtaking islands, and Kevin can't wait to see them for himself. What starts as the perfect family vacation feels almost too good to be true. The next morning, he heads down to the beach with his family, planning to rent a boat, but when he gets to the rental stand, every boat is already taken. After pushing for alternatives, one of the workers finally tells him about a man farther down the shore who rents out his own private boat. A simple suggestion is about to change everything. Kevin tracks the man down, pays him, and rents the boat. He even offers to leave his ID as collateral, but the man just smiles and tells him he trusts him. With his wife and son on board, Kevin heads out into the open water. After they've gone quite a distance, his wife suddenly becomes uneasy and says they should turn back. They've drifted much farther from shore than she feels comfortable with. But then Kevin notices something in the distance. Off ahead sits a small, beautiful island. Curious to take a quick look before heading back, he turns the boat toward it. Once they arrive, they spend some peaceful time together. The island is quiet. No other people are anywhere in sight. After a while, Kevin decides it's time to leave, and that's when the real problem begins. They return to the boat, but when Kevin tries to start the engine, nothing happens. The vacation suddenly doesn't feel like a vacation anymore. At first, Kevin assumes it's a minor mechanical issue. He keeps trying again and again, but the engine refuses to start. He checks the gas tank. It's completely full. He looks over the engine carefully, yet he can't figure out what's actually wrong. As evening slowly approaches, his concern grows. He knows exactly how dangerous it can be to spend the night with his family on an isolated island after dark. The sinking feeling in his stomach only gets worse. With no other option, they are forced to stay on the small island overnight. The next morning, his wife wakes up and finds Kevin still drenched in sweat, still fighting with the engine. Nothing has changed. Then they realize something even worse. They never brought their cell phones, and the stranger who rented them the boat never took Kevin's ID. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody is looking for them. The realization hits hard. They're completely on their own. Then Kevin spots a boat far out on the water. He immediately starts shouting and waving his arms, desperately trying to get someone's attention. For the first time, rescue seems possible, but they're much too far away, and the people on that boat never see them. The boat disappears beyond the horizon, right in front of their eyes. Kevin tells himself another boat has to come this way eventually. He convinces himself the tourists probably use this route all the time. Sooner or later, another boat will pass by and rescue them. But the entire day slips away, and no boat ever appears. They have no proper food and no clean drinking water. 3 painful days pass like this. Kevin's young son starts getting seriously sick. His wife begins losing hope and quietly fears that nobody is coming for them, that they might die out there. The situation keeps getting worse with every passing hour, but Kevin refuses to give up. He reassures his family that somehow they'll find a way out of this. Determined to save them, he makes the difficult decision to move the boat without fixing the engine. He gets everyone on board and begins rowing the heavy boat himself. It's a desperate gamble, but it's their only chance. By now, Kevin is already exhausted. The brutal sun has left him severely dehydrated. After pushing himself for a while, he suddenly collapses in front of his family and loses consciousness. His body finally gives out after days of relentless struggle. When Kevin wakes up, he realizes their boat has drifted to another island. Panicked, he immediately checks on his wife and son. They're still breathing. They're alive. Then he spots another boat far in the distance. Using every bit of strength he has left, he shouts for help, but before he can do anything else, weakness overwhelms him and he passes out again. This time, fate finally seems to be on their side. The people on the boat notice them. They're actually 2 fishermen. One of them splashes water on Kevin's face and gives him something to drink. As soon as Kevin regains consciousness, he tells them everything about how he and his family became stranded. He also explains that he's a doctor, and the moment one fisherman hears that, greed takes over. Kevin tells him he'll pay in US dollars. The fisherman says nothing, and Kevin immediately realizes he wants much more money. The rescue suddenly starts feeling like a negotiation. Kevin explains that his entire life savings is around $50,000, and he's willing to give up everything to save his life, but the fisherman demands a staggering $100,000. Kevin tells him he doesn't have that kind of money. The fisherman insists that he can get it from friends and family back back home. With no other way to save his family, Kevin agrees. Then, without warning, the fisherman suddenly swings an oar and smashes Kevin in the back of the head, knocking him unconscious on the spot. What happens next is even worse than being stranded. When Kevin wakes up, both of his hands are tied with rope and his family is gone. The fisherman coldly tells him that he didn't bring Kevin's family along because Kevin could have gone straight to the police once they reached town. Until he gets every dollar he wants, he refuses to reveal which island they're being held on. There are countless islands scattered across those waters, and Kevin would never be able to find the right one on his own. Now his family's survival depends entirely on the man holding them hostage. Kevin has no choice but to agree. Once he reaches the city, he uses a payphone to call relatives and friends, desperately asking for money to help save his family. Every minute matters, and Kevin is running out of options fast. After countless calls and a tremendous effort, nearly $100,000 is gathered in his bank account. Seeing the money, the fisherman finally agrees to reveal the island's name. But first, he demands that every dollar be transferred into another account that isn't under his own name. Kevin doesn't ask any questions. He transfers everything. After that, the fisherman tells Kevin to get into a second boat. As soon as Kevin climbs inside, the fisherman locks him in from the outside and tells him to follow behind. Kevin believes he's finally being taken to his family. The fisherman claims he'll open the door once they reach the correct island. Filled with hope, Kevin follows him across the water. But after they travel far from the city and deep into open ocean, the fisherman tells Kevin to bring his boat closer. Kevin assumes the door is finally about to open. Instead, he's being led straight into another trap. Without warning, the fisherman pulls out a sharp tool and starts punching holes into Kevin's boat as fast as he can, trying to sink it and leave Kevin to die in the middle of the ocean. The man who promised help is now trying to erase him completely. The second fisherman, whose name is George, tries to stop him, but he's completely ignored. Water begins rushing into the boat. Kevin manages to stay alive for a short time, using the small pocket of air trapped inside. Believing Kevin is already dead, the fisherman leaves the area in his boat, but Kevin is still alive and refuses to give up. Using every ounce of strength he has left, he smashes the boat's window, escapes, and reaches the surface. Not long afterward, a passing tourist boat spots him and rescues him. They bring him back to the city, where Kevin tells a Coast Guard officer everything and explains the nightmare that happened to his family. But it's nighttime, and they're told that the search won't begin until morning, about 3 hours later. There are simply too many islands out there, and searching in the dark is impossible. For Kevin, waiting a few more hours feels unbearable. Kevin insists they don't have that kind of time. He argues that they need to find the fisherman first because he's the only person who knows which island his family is on. The problem is that nobody seems to fully believe him. The officer doesn't completely trust Kevin's story and firmly instructs him to wait until morning. Kevin realizes that no one is truly taking his warnings seriously, but he can't sit still. That's when he decides that no matter what happens, he'll find his family himself. He knows waiting for the authorities could cost them their lives, so instead of waiting, Kevin starts thinking on his own. He goes to a cafe and carefully studies maps of the area. He tries to determine which island his family might be stranded on, but with so many islands scattered across the region, he can't figure it out. Then a new idea suddenly comes to him. He returns to the same officer and suggests that the fisherman who attacked him will eventually need to come back and sell his catch, and that idea may be his best lead yet. Kevin explains that the fisherman will almost certainly show up at the fish market in the morning to sell the fish he caught. If they go there, they might be able to find him. It sounds like a solid lead, but the officer refuses again. The officer insists that the official search operation remains their top priority. Kevin realizes the police are still suspicious of him, so he decides to continue the search on his own. He heads to the fish market, but neither the fisherman nor George is there. Exhausted and disappointed, Kevin grabs a taxi back to his hotel. Then he notices something strange inside the cab. The driver has a fresh wound on his hand. It looks exactly like the injury Kevin saw earlier on the fisherman's hand. Kevin asks how it happened. The driver casually explains that certain fish can cause deep cuts like that, and says he received treatment at a local hospital in town. That information gives Kevin another possible lead. He immediately heads to the same hospital and gets treatment for his own injuries, and without realizing it, he may have just found the next piece of the puzzle. At the hospital, Kevin tells one of the doctors everything. He explains how the ruthless fisherman abandoned his wife and son on a remote island where they're fighting to survive every single moment. For the first time, someone genuinely seems willing to help him. The doctor feels deeply sympathetic after hearing the story and shows Kevin recent patient records. There are no photographs, but Kevin starts narrowing down names using age, height, and body type. Eventually, one profile stands out. out. Kevin immediately heads to the listed address. Inside the house, he encounters a woman. Then, he notices a photograph hanging on the wall. The fisherman is standing on his boat, and the boat's registration number is clearly visible. That photograph may finally give Kevin the breakthrough he needs. Kevin quickly snaps a picture with his phone, but at that exact moment, the fisherman suddenly arrives. Pretending not to recognize Kevin, he acts completely innocent. Furious, Kevin attacks him. The fisherman's wife rushes inside carrying a crossbow. Kevin grabs the fisherman's daughter to protect himself. In the chaos, the wife fires, but the bolt accidentally strikes her own daughter, and in an instant, the entire situation spirals out of control. Seeing what happened to his daughter, the fisherman completely loses control and attacks Kevin with deadly intent. The confrontation turns into a fight for survival. Defending himself, Kevin kills the fisherman, but he's already badly injured, and before he can escape, he collapses unconscious onto the floor. When he wakes up, he's lying in a hospital bed with handcuffs locked around his wrists. A police officer is standing nearby, keeping a close watch on him. Soon, the officer accuses Kevin of staging his family's disappearance for a large insurance payout and killing the fisherman to eliminate a witness. Now, Kevin is being treated like a criminal. He also learns that the search for his family has been permanently called off. That's when he realizes time is slipping away faster than ever. As officers attempt to move him to another location, Kevin suddenly grabs a gun, forces them to remove his handcuffs, and escapes. The officer immediately goes after him, and now Kevin is running out of both time and chances. Kevin manages to lose them and get away. He now has the boat's registration number, but searching the records leads nowhere. Every lead seems to end in another dead end. He feels completely trapped until one final idea comes to mind. He calls the American embassy and explains that after receiving the money from Kevin's account, the fisherman made a phone call to a man named George. If they can check the phone records, they may be able to find him. The embassy agrees to help and take action. Meanwhile, the police are searching everywhere for Kevin. He calls the officer and suggests tracking down George's phone number. The officer tells him they've already contacted George, but his phone is now turned off. Just when hope starts fading again, fate intervenes. Heartbroken, Kevin boards a bus leaving the city, convinced he's lost his family forever. Then he sees something shocking. George is sitting near the back of the bus. Kevin immediately calls out to him. George panics the moment he sees Kevin and jumps off the bus. Despite his deep injuries, Kevin chases after him. The one man who knows the truth is finally within reach.
But Kevin is too weak and eventually has to stop. A short distance ahead, George also collapses from exhaustion. Both men have reached their absolute limit. Kevin calmly pleads with him. He promises he won't hurt him. He just wants to know which island his family is on. George finally believes him and slowly starts moving closer. Then, without warning, a speeding vehicle slams into George. Kevin rushes to his side. Pulling out a map, he desperately asks which island it is. The answer comes in George's final conscious moments. Just before losing consciousness, George raises a trembling hand and points to a specific island. Kevin immediately sends George to the hospital in the same vehicle and races toward the harbor. He has no money left to rent a boat, so he uses the gun he took earlier and commandeers a fast tourist boat. First, he fills it with fuel. Then, he heads straight toward the island at full speed. For Kevin, this is the last chance to save his family. Kevin has a gun, but he refuses to fire at the police. Even now, saving his family matters more than everything else. Instead, he throws the weapon into the ocean. Then, he notices the boat has 2 engines. He starts the second engine and dramatically increases his speed, pulling far beyond the police's reach. Soon, Kevin arrives at the island where his wife and son are stranded. Their condition is critical. He immediately gives his wife water and manages to wake her up. Then, he checks on his young son. What he finds nearly breaks him. His son isn't breathing. Panic hits instantly, but Kevin is a doctor. He immediately begins rescue breathing. After several intensely stressful moments, his son finally starts breathing again. Kevin knows they have to leave immediately. He carries his son to the boat first. Then, he struggles to go back for his wife, but Kevin is severely injured and completely exhausted. Dizzy and weak, he collapses onto the sand. At that moment, a red helicopter appears overhead. It's the same helicopter that had been tracking the stolen boat. Kevin opens his eyes and looks up at it, and finally, his wife and son are saved. He survived. But some parts of a person never come back from a place like that. If stories that stay in your mind long after they end mean something to you, stay with KTS Mosan, because survival isn't always the end of the nightmare.